So between 5 and 20% of Americans think it's a farce,
Yes.
and almost 50% of Russians think it's a farce too.
Mhm.
Of course, I'm talking about the moon landings, that they think that they were a hoax. But I can confirm that man did land on the moon. That's a
Mm.
headline after 55 years.
Yeah.
Can I say it with confidence? No, I can't. But I think I know a man who can. So after almost 60 years of doubts and accusations, it's finally been confirmed that man did land on the moon all those years ago. The first one, of course, Neil Armstrong,
Mhm.
on July the 21st, 1969. Who's confirming this? Well, the head of the Russian Roscosmos agency. That's
Mm.
like Russian version of NASA.
Yeah.
His name is Yuri Bozinov.
Mm.
He informed that the Americans did go to the moon because the soil samples they brought back were lunar.
Mm.
Right. Now, he didn't say what the properties of the lunar soil
Well,
sample
yeah.
contained,
Mm. Mm.
because they would have been alien, I
Mm.
imagine, or not, to what we have here on Earth.
Mm.
Right? But he insists, he did insist that the soil samples were lunar, and and by the way, the soil samples were sent by the US to several nations. Such an important
Mm.
thing it was to
Yeah.
be analysed.
Mm.
In fact, NASA shared samples from various expeditions to the moon
Mhm.
with these world scientists around
Yeah.
the world. Now, the previous head of Roscosmos, Dmitry Rogozin, he was a little bit more skeptical, and he was thinking more of the political side of the argument. He said that Apollo was set up to counter their guy, Yuri Gagarin,
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
was the first man in space on April the 12th, 1961.
Yeah. It's an achievement. Yeah. Yeah.
So there you have it. Russia doing a favor for the US. Uh, and the truth is under their feet, if you like.
Mm.
Over to you. It's short and sweet, but it's just, I thought it was a very interesting
Yeah.
thing to be shown so many years after
Well,
the 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 supposed fact. Away you go.
it's very different. I've never been in any doubt it happened. Um, Never been any doubt. I mean, I've got books here about it. I've got all sorts of things. It would have been too big an operation, I think, to fabricate. And even at the time, you're saying NASA confirmed it. If at the time, sorry, not necessarily confirmed
Roscosmos,
it, that
Roscosmos.
Roscosmos confirmed it. Even at the time, if the Russians had any doubt, they'd have been yelling from the rooftops about it. Okay, because they were trying to do it as well. I mean, yeah, they're the first one that achieved man in space. And that was an achievement in itself, and it just proved that Russia are very capable. Beware, people! Don't think that Russia sit around waiting for things to happen. Um, yeah, I mean, I've never had any. Literally, has been no doubts. I mean, got Buzz Aldrin. He's always been badgered about it, and I think one day he got frustrated. Of course, it didn't happen. Yeah, I like Buzz Aldrin. You know, actually, he turned around and whacked the guy who said he doubted it. Yeah, he got away with that one, didn't he? But
Crazy old
yeah,
man.
yeah. I think he could. Yeah, I think he could get in an MMA cage now. Yeah, I mean, he says he's had a couple of breakdowns, poor guy, as well. But yeah, he's still about. He's still promoting what he did. Um, no, okay, they've looked at pictures. This didn't happen. They've all been explained away how the flag was and everything else. Yeah, I'm afraid. Call me naive, call me innocent. but I've never had any doubts. And I know this is probably where you and I have differed on this, and a private conversation we had one day, I will think. Yeah, I think that's the height of cynicism. I think the space race was probably one of the best friendly rivalries we've ever had. Okay, if you're in the background of the Cold War, it pushed technology forward. I enjoyed it when you're reading about it. Now, what actually happened when the Cold War happened? I'm going to jump into a different subject here because that's what the biggest shock was. Were in 1989 onwards, when the Russians basically opened up their archives and said, "Hey, this is what we did." How close the Russians themselves were to actually getting a man on the moon. They were probably only months away behind, achieving it. So they knew it was possible. So they couldn't doubt it as well. It would have been a too big a conspiracy to cover up. The Russians, don't forget, had spies everywhere. If they got an inkling, they'd have found out. The Russians would have found out if it was a hoax, to my mind. Yeah. I could not think of any reason the Russians would keep a big thing like that secret at the time or now. Yeah, they've found no documents, archival evidence to say they did. No, I think I don't need the current administration in Russia to tell me the moon landing happened. I've always been convinced of it. I learned it at school in the 70s. Must be true.
Oh. No, I think from my sort of perspective, because we were talking about the soil samples.
Yeah.
And the Russian guy is basing his opinion on the soil samples that came back. That I'm sure that the Americans looked at the soil samples first because it was in their possession, right? And they would have seen something in the soil samples that were not not known here on Earth.
Yeah. Okay,
they must have, because if they didn't, if they brought back the soil samples and it looked like something that they took up in the back garden somewhere, then they wouldn't spread it around the world. They wouldn't give it to different scientists from all over the world to say, "What do you think of that?"
Well, yeah, I mean, there is a fear about how the moon formed, and part of it may have been when the asteroid hit the Earth and some dust went up, and obviously the way that planets formed. Yeah, it formed its own gravity thing. It spins, that clusters together, and I mean, the moon is a satellite. Yeah.
Short of putting soil into a microwave and zapping it to give it the radiation feeling.
Yeah. Well, I think
I don't know how you could fake moon dust.
No, you couldn't. I mean, okay. Even different radiation gives off different signatures, as they call it. I mean, I did all this in physics at school as well. I actually learned something at school. Didn't pass a lot, but I learned a lot.
It's good you did, because you said what you just said.
Yeah. That's locked in there, mate. Yeah. Okay. I've seen the films about it. I've watched look, I'm somebody that even if I don't believe something or watch something, I'll spend 40 minutes watching a program trying to debunk everything I believe to see if it can debunk it. Yeah. Ask the right questions. I've not seen the right questions asked. Did it happen? If so, we all know why it would have happened, why it would have been created. Yeah. They've never found the studio. I mean, that would have been quite a big production to have done. Yeah, you wouldn't have been talking about one guy walking around with his mobile phone. It'd have been substantial.
Well, in terms of the studio, they did have a studio because they rehearsed everything.
Yeah.
That they said they were going to do on the moon.
Well, yeah, you would do. I mean, it was a very, very dangerous operation. Expedition operation. It was an operation, really. It was. These guys were military guys, so they were used to risk. They'd seen action and everything. And test pilots were absolutely crazy people. So So they knew exactly what they were going into. Neil Armstrong, when he went down, I mean, I don't think he could have stood in that set. I mean, they landed the module on there first, so they knew it was a solid. Again, they had one hit to do that, to land that module. That could have quite easily tipped over, had a problem. It wouldn't have been so much tipping over, it was how they'd have launched it a bit later. It'd have been a bit difficult to write it. Forget the Boeing problem of rescuing people from a Boeing craft at the moment. This would have really been something. So yeah, it was a finely prepared operation. Incredible ingenuity with relatively infant digital technology or raw technology. Bearing in mind that we got there because of Nazi technology. Yeah. 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 I mean, that probably has a million times the power that they landed man on the moon with.
Yeah.
What's going on in the world? Hang on. In which case, why hasn't our intelligence increased by an equal amount?
They had gonads bigger than Captain Kirk.
I think that's it. Yeah. Yeah. Nowadays, there has been so much risk involved and all that. They literally were put on top of a firework and fired up there. Yeah. And yeah, they did lose some guys before they went there. And we don't know how many people the Russians lost, really, even now, really. No. And others. I mean, if Korea decides to have North Korea decides to have a space program. I mean, the Chinese managed to. Yeah,
they've got to reach Japan first.
Yeah, well, I mean, even Brazil tried to have a space program, and that didn't end particularly well, did it? But yeah, why do so many countries need a space program? We can have cooperation. I mean, when you think about it, if there is a lot of cooperation has gone on in the past between the US and Russia since the Cold War with regards to space exploration.
Yeah, sure. Well, just look at the space. Look at the space.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do with that. Yeah, I mean, these guys go up there. They're scientists and professionals. They go up there. Whatever's happening on Earth, they outside it. I do believe there's a procedure in place for what to do if it all does kick off, and it is to get back to Earth. And yeah, I think depending on which country the astronauts land in or cosmonauts, there will be a guaranteed free passage back. Yeah.
I think if they were to send up more astronauts to the space station, it will get really crowded because the US have got to bring the astronauts that are already there back to Earth first because of the leaks and the Boeing. There's not a return journey. They were talking about what the Musk rocket going up to.
Yeah, that's a bit of an insult to Boeing. Yeah, I mean, the Russians have been doing it since the end of the space shuttle program, which was always a sad thing for me. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. I know they had their problems. Again, the problems were found to be arrogance and negligence and things like that. O-ring that went, and then the tolls. They knew about the tolls coming off, and etc. Very, very sad, but it did show the perils with space flight.
I think also if they're going to send up another rocket to rescue the astronauts that are there, they're going to have to let the rocket that's actually there go, because there's only one docking place, I should imagine.
Well, that's it. It'd be expendable. I mean, they'd have to try and get it into a safe orbit, I believe. I'd imagine. Whatever a safe space orbit is, you get it well out of the way of everything else, or you put it down a bit. I mean, yeah, we've got enough debris flying around up there already.
Right, there you are. And I think that the rocket that they sent up there with the astronauts before there were the leaks.
Yeah.
That's just going to be floating around for a while, and eventually it's going to have to come back down to Earth because it isn't.
Controlled descent and burn it in the atmosphere. It's just controlled descent is a little bit of a.
Whatever they do, don't leave it to Boeing.
I imagine that Boeing are in a lot of trouble. I mean, I mean, yes. If Musk does go up, I mean, Musk will probably try I can imagine it being Musk's mind. How can I retrieve this and prove to the world I can retrieve things as well? And that could be quite a good thing, collecting debris and all that. I mean, Musk, that would be a money spinner. Anyone can do that.
He'll probably have the program in a very small microchip, and he'll just plug it in,
Yeah,
just like one of those
yeah.
technicians call center where somebody's computer goes down, and they
Oh,
come back and just plug it in, and then
well, you got to remember with Elon Musk, he was a programmer. He probably wrote that in over a lunch break. That's all ready
yeah,
to go. Don't worry about that. He's done that already.
here's one I made previously. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You guys don't know what you're doing. Yeah, he's gonna rule the world one day.